Morning, council members. It's 11 a.m. and I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the Texas Early Learning Council meeting. I'm Reagan Miller. I'm the chair of the Early Learning Council, and I'm also the director of childcare and early learning at the Texas Workforce Commission. So welcome members and welcome public folks who are coming to join us today. We're producing this as a Zoom webinar. Council members, presenters, and agency staff are participating as panelists. Members of the public are able to participate in a listen-only mode. A reminder to council members, please keep your electronic devices on mute when you're not speaking. Megan will mute us if she needs to. Megan is our Interagency Director of Early Childhood Support, and she's going to serve as the meeting facilitator today. And council members, if you can try to remember to state your name before you speak. Okay, public comment closed yesterday at 5 p.m. Written public comment, but members of the public are still able to request oral public comment today by emailing the request to Megan, and Megan is dropping that instruction into the chat for everyone. So council members, I wanted to start off letting you know that we've had some membership changes. So we've had a few members who have been on the council for a long time and have just retired or are no longer in their previous roles. So I want to give a thanks to Sarah Abrahams, Terry Breeden, and Melissa Hosington, who have all now cycled off of the council. So we'll have some vacancies for those individuals that will need to be considered by the governor's office. And we also have had some other prior vacancies that will need to get processed. So just know that we're working with a smaller group right now and looking forward to seeing who our new council members will be. Okay, so for today's agenda, we are going to start off with the approval of the meeting minutes from April. So all of the council members should have received a copy of this in email. So I'd like to see if any council members have comments or edits that you'd like to make on those draft meeting minutes. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the April 2025 meeting minutes?
This is Kim Coffrin. I will so move to accept the meeting minutes from April.
Thank you, Kim. And do we have a second? Shruti, was that you? Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm having a little difficulty hearing you, but perfect. Okay, so with that, Megan is going to conduct a roll call vote so that we can both approve the minutes and do our roll call to see members that are present today. So Megan, to you.
Sure thing. And with that said, just before I do this, I'm getting notes from a few council members who are having trouble getting into the meeting. So if some of them aren't here and join later, we'll just revisit that. So when I say your name, please say for, against, or abstain. And as a reminder, you are able to approve the minutes by saying for, even if you weren't present at the last meeting. So we will start with Shruti Aris Mendez. For. Weldon Beard. April Crawford.
For.
Alfirma Giles.
For.
Becky Huss-Keeler. Kim Coffrin.
For.
Tori Lee. I got a message from Tori that she is trying to get into the meeting, so she is not here yet, but will be shortly.
I see her now.
Oh, great. Okay. Beatrice Mata. Reagan Miller.
4.
Marcela Nava.
4.
Stephanie Rubin. I know I saw Stephanie join, so I'm going to give her a second.
I did, and Stephanie, we can't hear you. You're
Oh.
off mute, but we can't hear you.
How about that? 4.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
Amber Sconlin.
Sorry, it's Scanlon and 4. Thank
Oh,
you.
great. Apologies.
That's okay. Thanks.
Kirsten Schwab.
4.
Jennifer Stockmer. And Megan Young.
4.
Great. With that, the motion to approve the April 2025 meeting minutes has carried, and I will pass it back to you, Reagan.
Wonderful. So our next agenda item is public comment. So Megan, have we had anyone sign up to provide public comment?
We didn't receive anything in advance. Let me see if anything came in. No, we did not receive any requests for public comment. So just as a reminder to those tuned in, we always welcome public comment. You have about 3 minutes to give thoughts about anything that's on the agenda. And I will pass it back to you.
All
Very good.
right. Okay, our next agenda item is the Texas Early Learning Strategic Plan. So a reminder that as part of the preschool development grant, we developed an early learning strategic plan in 2023, and we're sharing out progress reports at each of our Texas Early Learning Council meetings. So there were 4 goals in the strategic plan, and today we're going to hear updates related to goal 2, workforce recruitment, retention, and support, and goal 4 on integrated data and systems. So our first update is on goal 2, focusing on strategy 2.4 and a couple of action items under that, 2.4.5, workforce preparedness, and 2.4.7, professional development around mental health. So with that, we've got some invited speakers with us here today, Jenny Baldwin and Holly Gerslin. And how do you say your last name, Holly?
Basetta.
Basetta. Wonderful. All right. So they're going to provide some updates on our work around infant and early childhood mental health. So let me turn it over to you guys.
Right. And Megan, are you sharing our slides?
Kathy Davis is running slides for you. Yeah.
Wonderful. We'll give her a second to get those up.
Oh, they're up. I don't know if you can see them, but they are already
We
up. and-
can't. Okay, great.
Okay.
Well, I will just assume.
I
it
can
shows
see them,
up.
Holly.
Okay, great. Okay. Well, I will just assume they're happening, and then Jenny, you can cue me if something is going awry. Well, thank you everybody for having us today. We're excited to update you on all work related to infant early childhood mental health consultation. It's being funded by the Preschool Development Grant Birth Through $5. So our update today, we're going to do a quick grounding / reminder of what it is we're even talking about, and then how our work pilot project got up and running, a quick bit about the background, where it's happening, where the work is, and then what's to come. So if you could go to the next slide for me. So I know this is a lot on one slide and a little bit of picturing, but infant early childhood mental health consultation is a prevention-based approach that pairs a mental health professional with adults who care for young children, like families, teachers, home visitors, pediatricians, and childcare providers. And the goal is simple but powerful. It's to build the capacity of the adults and and to help them better understand, support, and respond to the social emotional needs of infants and young children, especially those facing stress or adversity. It's not therapy for the child. It's about strengthening the relationship and the environment around that child so that every child has the best chance to thrive. Decades of research and evaluation in other states and coupled with a National Center of Excellence have shown that this approach consistently leads to positive outcomes, and not only for the child or the children, but who are ultimately impacted, but also the adults then who care for them. So consultation improves children's social skills and emotional regulation. It decreases behavioral challenges identified by adults. It reduces suspension and expulsion rates. It reduces stress, burnout, turnover among early childhood providers, and it provides a better understanding for the adults on child development, trauma, emotional regulation, infant mental health. So then providers then feel more confident, providers and parents, caregivers feel more confident and effective in their work and interactions with children. And that kind of stability benefits everyone, especially the child. So again, infant early childhood mental health consultation is not talk therapy. It's not play therapy. It's not family counseling. It's not clinical services. It's not directed specifically at the child. And instead, it's that consultative role, consultative stance for the adults designed to build their confidence, their intelligence, their awareness to better support the healthy development and respond effectively to challenges children and families are facing. The shift from thinking about direct services to a child to more of that focus on the adult is exactly what makes this service unique and why it is so effective. It's already happening in 20 other states across early childhood settings, so we had a lot to learn from. And then who are these folks? So consultants are specialized providers, as you can imagine. They have expertise and experience working with diverse families across early childhood systems. They understand how to collaborate with other early childhood professionals. They're licensed master's level clinicians who have specialized training in infant and early childhood mental health. And they meet the newly published set of Texas core competencies, which you can find on our website. And I'm sure Jenny will assist me momentarily in putting that website link in the chat for you all. And so they've become a powerful tool in our state's quality improvement and workforce stabilization efforts. You can go to the next slide, Kathy.
So we did have a little bit of a snafu on the slides there. So the information Holly was just speaking to, if you'll go back one more, Kathy, just so that folks can see it with clarity, that'd be great. Thank you so much. So, so this is the reference point on what Holly was just speaking to. And then now we can go to the next slide in case folks reference this in the future.
Thanks, Jenny. So hopefully now you all are seeing a slide that says the early childhood continuum of care. This is really for folks' reference later on, but the goal here was to show where infant early childhood mental health consultation fits into that larger early childhood continuum. Consultation fills a need or gap related to serving and supporting infants and children's social emotional well-being across these different services and continuums. And they do this primarily through promotion, so training, educating, modeling, and then prevention, coaching, reflective action planning with a provider, all those types of strategies. But then they can also make quality referrals to treatment if needed for families based on their vast knowledge of both adult and child mental health needs. So what does this look like then? Successful implementation would look like an infant early childhood mental health consultant being placed in a community-based organization with a supportive network or team who has access to children and families and is trusted in their community as a partner that families go to seek out and engage with for services. So on the next slide, hopefully you're seeing a map of Texas. So we've given you a little bit of the what, the why, and the how. So this is now where. Through multiple funding sources, including the Preschool Development Grant, we've had 7 sites start and begin establishing their consultation program, and it's supporting 10 counties. So we're really excited about that. Each of these sites listed in a little over a year was able to employ at least one infant early childhood mental health consultant, and began providing services to their local early intervention programs, early education programs, home visiting programs, and medical programs. And that also makes Texas really unique. Go to the next slide for me, Kathy. So on this one, hopefully you're seeing what we call our menu of services. So this is kind of giving you a picture of what are these consultants doing. This is a list or menu of some of the services consultants can offer. Multiple services can be offered at once. These sort of activities can ebb and flow. Unique service provision plans are developed between the consultant and the organization that they're working with to meet those unique needs. It's not an exhaustive list, and specific services offered will vary depending on the consultant's expertise as well. But it's meant to meet the unique needs of communities. And these are the different activities that they could be doing at any given time. Through this list, you can also begin to see how a consultant impacts multiple layers of services. So for example, they can support workforce development and support. They can work on systems, policies, procedures, and then they can also impact family supports as well. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jenny, who is going to talk about then from everything we've learned and how we got established, then how our pilot work happened, and the exciting and lots of state work that we've done as well.
Thanks, Holly. All right, we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so here we have some information that we've recently developed in regard to kind of impact of mental health consultation. So this is really output focused. And it speaks to what a 1.0 FTE, one mental health consultant could do in a community within a year. So within 1 year, we would expect for that mental health consultant to be able to serve 3 early childhood programs. That means at the program level. So they would be working with the director, providing support to the entire staff of that program. That program could be an ECI program, an early care and education program, like a child care center, a pre-K, a home visiting program. Everyone in that organization would benefit from the consultative services. The 1.0 would also work with 95 early childhood professionals. So that would be on an individual basis. That would be working one-on-one with one of those staffers with their caseload, with their classroom, with a particular case. And so those 95 would be person-to-person kind of interactions at a deeper level. We would expect that consultant would also be able to train around 600 professionals or so within the year. Training is a core component of what their functions are. And so they would be providing regular trainings to not only the clients that they work with through the early childhood programs, but to the general community as well in regard to infant and early childhood mental and behavioral health. And then finally, residual of all of that, all of those professionals trained, all of those professionals supported through mental health consultation, we have the potential to impact over 2,000 families. There's a range here, and this is a projection as well for all of these numbers, because where we are in Texas is we are still learning what it's actually going to look like in the field. We're new. This is a pilot, and so we don't have years of data to go back to look at yet to analyze and see what those averages are. So this is an educated guess composed of what we know the activities a consultant does in their 40 hours a week. And so this is where we are right now. And so let's talk more. If you go to the next slide. Thanks. Great. Let's talk more about what outcomes we can expect. So that was outputs. Let's move into outcomes. How do we know that this mental health consultation is working? So through our identified evaluation measures, we're looking at 3 buckets of outcomes: improving children's emotional and behavioral functioning, improving early childhood professionals' well-being, and finally, improving the parent caregiver's well-being. And then within each of these buckets, we have some designated outcomes and indicators that we're looking at. So through these buckets of work, we can expect to see an increase in social and emotional protective skills in children. And those protective skills then lead to a decrease in social and emotional risk factors. You'd also see fewer early childhood professionals experiencing burnout and compassion fatigue, and then more early childhood workers reporting job satisfaction. So that, of course, leads to a higher staff retention rate, which is great for the kids that we serve because it provides them with stability in services. And that consistency in staffing also improves the workplace for other team members who otherwise would have to be juggling roles and filling in during times of vacancies. And then finally, you would see a reported reduction in parent and caregiver stress, which leads to improved parent-child relationships. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, great. All right, so in 2023, TIMH, our institute, began partnering with the Texas Workforce Commission on the PDG grant, and it was to consider how we might bring this mental health consultation as a statewide approach to Texas. So here you have some details on the progress of this project to date. There's a lot of resources here that you can link to, but I'd like to bring your attention to the information about the Texas Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health Consultation Program Manual. We're working on that in sections so that we can get information out as quickly as possible. We have half of the manual already posted on the website, which is in the chat box. There are 2 sections there. One is an orientation to mental health consultation, and the other goes over program competencies for mental health consultation. In about a month or so, we'll have our 3rd section online, and it addresses recommended trainings for mental health consultants. And then by December, we'll have our final section bringing it all together, and that's going to address program evaluation. You also see here some links to promotional videos. There's one for ECI and one for early care and education settings. They're free for your use. Please use them and disseminate them broadly. They're short videos that describe what these services look like in the field. And the audience for them includes early childhood professionals, state partners, and families. We're also currently working on a 3rd and final video that would demonstrate consultation in home visiting settings, and that will be online by December. These are a great chance to really understand what we're talking about, not just mental health consultation, but what are we talking about when we're talking about early childhood mental and behavioral health. And then finally on here, you'll see an update on our pilot. So as Holly said, we're working in 7 communities across Texas. 6 of those are part of the PDG pilot, and that includes 10 counties. All sites are operational, serving early childhood professionals and families. They're also all implementing all facets of mental health consultation. So those 3 types of consultation, the programmatic, the one-on-one, and then the classroom or caseload kind of level. And then they're also providing trainings to early childhood professionals, and they're serving across 3 types of settings: early care and education, ECI, and home visiting. All right, next slide, please. So this is just a list of some of the same resources, really. This is just for your reference. We're going to skip ahead really quickly, but this just might be a little more digestible to find those links so you can grab those resources for later. All right, next slide. Okay, great. So then what's next? We're closing in on the end of this project. It runs until December 2025. So let's talk about what we do know and what we don't yet know. So decades of research and evaluation, including support from the National Center of Excellence for Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health Consultation that's out of Georgetown University, all show that mental health consultation consistently leads to positive outcomes for both children and the adults who care for them. Consultation improves children's social and emotional regulation skills. And as we talked about, that means a decrease in behavioral challenges and reductions in suspension and expulsion rates for early care and education settings. It also reduces stress, burnout, and turnover among early childhood providers like teachers, ECI professionals, home visitors. And then those providers gain an understanding of child development, trauma, emotional regulation, and they feel more confident and effective in their roles. So that stability just really benefits everyone across the team, and particularly the children. Mental health consultations are already happening in over 20 states across the nation, and we're hoping that Texas is about to join those ranks. We've made a lot of strides in the last 2.5 years as a part of this PDG support. However, the challenging funding landscape right now could jeopardize that progress. Our community organizations we're working with as a part of this pilot are looking to identify new funding options to sustain this work, but more support is definitely needed. We also know that states that have had long-term success in sustaining mental health consultation have a centralized training and technical assistance entity to oversee their statewide mental health consultation efforts. Right now, we don't have anyone in Texas who's identified to support as a TNTA center beyond the PDG project. So without that, what we're at risk for is backsliding our efforts to where we were before PDG, which means there's not necessarily going to be an opportunity to have a shared understanding of what infant and early childhood mental health consultation is. And this is a problem because it leads to a variety of approaches across the state. Some of those may not be research informed, and that inconsistency also leads to confusion amongst providers and families. And we don't have an ability to track what the impact of the work really is. So a TNTA center is also a critical component of this statewide infant and early childhood mental health system that we currently are able to achieve through PDG. All right. So in 2025, a cross-sector group of state agency leads was formed to kind of help address some of these sustaining issues in Texas, and it continues to be a work in progress. All right, last slide, please. Great. So here's our contact information. We encourage you to reach out to us. We are in the midst of those sustaining efforts. We would love to talk to you if you have ideas. Also, if you're in one of the communities where we're currently working for the PDG pilot for infant and early childhood mental health consultation, and you'd like to be connected with the program there, please reach out to us. We would love to connect you. I'm also going to pass off to Holly because she has some information on some of our upcoming trainings that we have for early childhood professionals this fall.
Yes, I just wanted to pop back in really quickly, just label 2 upcoming professional development opportunities that kind of go along with implementing a successful infant early childhood mental health consultation system. One of those is going to be reflective supervision training, spanned out as far as we can reach. So reflective supervision is a supported process for providers to have a collaborative space to talk about their professional experience, their emotions, their interactions, their beliefs, and then how that affects the work that they do with the children and families that they serve. So this training will be done in 2 ways. We'll have one that's a foundational training so that folks can gain a better understanding of what is reflective supervision, where is it happening, how do they participate in it. And we'll be offering 3 of those at a large scale in the fall. And we have plenty of seats, so it'll be offered as a first come, first served basis. The second option for reflective supervision training is going to be a smaller invite only cohort, up to 30 people who are providing reflective supervision already, but may have never received formal training, who are moving into roles that could be doing reflective supervision next, or they've been doing reflective supervision, but they haven't done training in a while, or they want to hone their skills. That cohort will be doing 5 intensive trainings between September and December, and then 4 mentoring circles to essentially continue to practice their skills and then be able to offer reflective groups when they're done. Registration for both of those opportunities will be coming out late next week, so keep your eyes open. The second professional development opportunity is going to be around pyramid model training with an emphasis on both infant, toddler, and pre-K curriculums. Again, we'll be offering it in 2 different formats. One will be a 2-day event for our direct service providers so that they'll be learning the core concepts, foundational information, and how to work within that curriculum. And the second will be a 3-day intensive format for our trainers, our coaches, our infant mental health consultants, our directors. And that one is geared much more toward the core concepts and how do we implement those core concepts and keep it sustaining. Registration for those trainings will also be coming out in the next 2 weeks, so please stay tuned.
Okay, I think we're also just here for any questions anyone has about the project.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi. I think actually, Holly, I might have brought your name up at the last meeting because people had some questions about it. And I think I said, we might as well just get a presentation from Holly, I think. So nice to see you. So, I mean, I have some bigger questions. Of course, this is like a mental health, early childhood mental health consultation is one aspect of addressing infant and early childhood mental health. Like it's a model, it's not the only thing. I guess one question is about the label and calling it that as opposed to other things. Has there been some discussion about how kind of landing on this as this consultation model, talking about infant mental health? Like, do people wonder what the heck that is? Are there other states that call it something different? Like how have you all as a kind of lots of players come around to use that title, I guess?
Yeah, great question. You can imagine that there's been many, many, many meetings about what do we call this particular service, because infant early childhood mental health consultation doesn't always roll very easily off the tongue unless you're practicing it. And even then it gets a little complicated. So I guess I want to start by saying currently, one of the reasons why we use the full name is to help create clarity from the national lens and also other states' lens so that we're all talking about the same thing. Also to help differentiate it from other early childhood support services right now. Help folks understand the difference of who a consultant is and what their background is and what they're providing versus a pyramid model coach or an inclusion specialist or an early interventionist. And so we're using the title currently as we're bringing a brand new program to Texas to help define it and kind of use it as its definition. Yes, other states do call it other things where there's funding aligned with it, legislation aligned with it, and it's kind of meeting the needs of their families, but they've also been in progress for 20, 30 years of services. And so the name change is not affecting an understanding of the work. And then do we expect it to change in Texas? Absolutely. Yeah. Even the model itself, we expect there to be some testing of the model, fidelity of the model, changing to see how it meets the unique needs. Currently, as we're establishing it, we just decided that it was the most helpful to keep that clarity. We also learned from other states as we convene with them quarterly that outreach and communication around infant early childhood mental health consultation has been the biggest challenge. And so for us, that lesson was, let's keep it as simple as we can at the moment, and then change it as it gets established within the state. Yeah.
So one other question, and then I guess a comment based on some stuff that happened in the legislature. So the question is, you're training in the childcare, you're training the childcare workforce. You're consulting for the childcare workforce, which has a lot of turnover. And if, even probably the consultant workforce is going to have a lot of turnover. So I guess one question is how do you manage that? Because it's a lot of resources to train people, and then they maybe don't stay in the field, or they move into a school, or, how, it seems like in order to really make this work, we have to have more stability in the childcare workforce, right?
Yeah, I would say this is a strategy to achieve. that stability in the childcare workforce. In the
Okay.
states that have had mental health consultation programs for longer, especially those that have a decade or more, where we really can see some longitudinal results, they have seen that stability increase. So that's one of the things that data over time has shown that really is a result of this program. This program was actually originally born from early care and education settings. And then later on, McV, the Maternal, Infant, and Early Childhood Home Visiting Program, authorized that it could be used in home visiting settings. Now some places are looking, like Texas, at ECI and medical settings, but it started back in early care and education. So the most data we have is about that setting. And it really speaks to the idea and the impact, right? That's what we see when you have more support in those high stress positions, the turnover rates really go down.
That makes
And
sense.
when you're kind of speaking to what we said earlier, if I'm not getting pulled into other classrooms and having to bridge my role, I might not be that second domino that falls, because that's often what happens too. One person leaves and then another person leaves because everybody becomes more stressed and more stretched thin. And so this is the benefits really kind of extrapolate out like that. I'd also like to go back to your question about infant and early childhood mental health and how that is a bit of a nebulous topic sometimes. This is a core issue I think that we need to talk about. That's also part of the role of this person, is to bring more understanding and awareness, not just with professionals, but also with families, that behavioral health, mental health, it exists from birth. This is something as humans we have from birth. It's just relational when we're that young. It's about our relationship with the other people around us. So supporting those parents, caregivers, and the early childhood professionals that are in their lives to help them to kind of create, again, those social and emotional skills really leads to improved mental and behavioral health for kids. Sorry to interrupt you, Stephanie.
Oh, no, thank you for clarifying that. I was just going to comment, this session, there was a bill, HB 6, that reinstated, well, made it much easier to do out of school suspension for young kids, which had been restricted in prior session. And there was a lot of testimony about the kind of social emotional challenges, behavioral challenges that teachers are facing. And it does seem like it kind of calls out for this as a strategy to address that, as opposed to, sending kids home with no support.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I saw that, I think the teachers were asking for many tools, and it seems like if this is expanded in childcare, it might really help address that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
In
mean,
pre-K classrooms.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what a more important time to continue to support an effort like this, where there's intentional planning around reducing suspension expulsion practices and rates, and working with children in those families who have been identified as being challenging. And I think the other thing, Stephanie, I just wanted to add real quick. I know, Kim, you have your hand up. We're coming to you. When we think about training, providing education and promotion and information about infant mental health to providers, even if they end up, worst case scenario, leaving their role, if they end up going to another one, because we often see sort of this like cycling of educators moving around, we actually haven't lost anything, because whatever they've been given, that modeling, that coaching, that
Exactly.
information, that support is moving to the next place, where maybe then they find just one different level of support that they needed to then start exuding those behaviors and going, right, I remember I was learning this thing, I'm going to try it here as I kind of reset and start over. So I think that's the other piece of it is, to me, it doesn't feel like a lost resource if they're going into something really similar.
I would add to that, Holly, not even if they go into something similar, if they just become parents one day, helps them become another better parent. That's what we always said about professional development in the early childhood. But they just gonna leave. Well, if they leave and become a better parent, that's a win. Two questions for you and Jenny both, and thank you for the presentation. one, what's been your biggest lesson learned over the last couple of years? And what do you think is really the magic sauce to make this more of a statewide program versus the little pockets that we currently have?
Yeah, I can speak to one lesson learned and then I'll toss it over. But originally, when this was first being established, there was some concern, I'd even say fear, about whether or not we could fill the role of who an infant early childhood mental health consultant would be. And would our sites be able to find these qualified individuals, get them into the organizations, get them into the role and get them started? And there was, genuine concern about that workforce. Do we have it? We're about to find out. Can they meet language needs, diversity needs, those sorts of things? And the answer was surprisingly, and a great lesson learned was yes, we filled those roles surprisingly quickly. Folks are eager to take on this exciting work because it combines their expertise and skill sets that they've gained over time, both in early childhood work, then also in the mental health field, and brings them into direct contact again with providers, right? And I think that's exciting. And so I think one of our biggest lessons learned was it wasn't difficult to fill the role and that people are excited about this. And then as we supported some foundational training to get a larger workforce prepared or could start to build capacity, we were able to fill every training spot we offered. So that was another exciting lesson learned, is that what we suspected there was a need or interest for, there absolutely was. And so when we think about scaling, we haven't had any hardship with that. When folks think, could we hire another consultant? We have a couple sites who have more than one, and it was filled, and they're bilingual, and they're licensed mental health providers, and it's been a surprisingly fruitful process. So I'll say that was my biggest lesson learned, was just, it's not as scary as it
Yeah.
sounds.
Yeah, we even have one of our sites that has 2.0 consultants and is considering a third because of the need in that area. It's an urban area, but they're seeing quite a lot of need. Yeah, I think another interesting lesson learned are the differences in the settings that we're working in, and of course how different it is to organize this work for a classroom-based setting versus a home-based intervention like ECI or home visiting, versus in Project Launch, we have one setting that's an FQHC, so in a medical setting. And that is kind of the final frontier really right now, because that's the most rare in other states. And figuring that out with competing priorities of those other programs and what they have to do. And so that's something I think that a lot of states actually are still figuring out, more so in the ECI home visiting and medical settings. Like, as I said, those are kind of newer places where we're seeing this work happen. So we are the only state that has ever said we're doing all of it right off the bat. And I think that's an exciting place to be. And because of the work that we've done through this project that is inclusive of a national scan, where we've spoken to 17 of those states that have programs, we've really made some great connections. Texas has really made some great connections nationally with these other programs. And now our subject matter experts at a national level, where even the Center of Excellence for Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health Consultation is coming to us for data and things like that. So Texas is at a really exciting place. We just want to keep that energy going forward beyond PDT.
And Kim, you had asked about, what's the bread and butter, what keeps it going? And I think because we're at an earlier stage, one is, I think, keeping an ability to keep all the newly established consultants as a network. They need to also be able to learn from each other, support each other, understand their cross systems work. And so to have the ability of a group that can convene them to do that they maintain support and reflective supervision. And that then there's also some cross system evaluation and understanding. One of the things we learned at even a national level is that return on investment data isn't quite there yet. And we are lucky enough that when we started, we thought about that initially. So even some of our early evaluation interests, about the service and program. We're already thinking about how many years from now can we give some information on return on investment and how can we get that out quickly. And so that's going to also be a very exciting adventure moving forward. So that will also be a big part of what keeps us going.
Great, thank you both.
All right, any other questions or comments? Okay,
Thank you, everyone.
thank you, Jenny and Holly. All right, moving on to our next update from our strategic plan. We're going to talk about goal 4 on data and system coordination, a couple of strategies in there on eSIDS and then on data platforms that can be used locally. So Megan, I believe you're going to have an update on our eSIDS work.
Yeah, thank you, Reagan. So I'm Megan Schneider, facilitating this meeting, but also now putting on my TEA hat, or cross-agency hat, I guess, to give an update about this early childhood integrated data system work. So the work really started with y'all, like with this work group of the Texas Early Learning Council. And I know it's been a few years now that this has been underway. So we just wanted to come back and give a bit of an update. So for those who are new to this topic, I wanted to give a little bit of an overview of what an early childhood integrated data system is. So it is, for the purposes of our state, we plan to start it with these 3 agencies that are part of the Early Childhood Interagency Work Group, and all of whom are members of this council. So TEA, Workforce Commission, as well as Health and Human Services Commission. And so the goal of an eSIDS is really to enable that cross-agency analysis of service access, eligibility, and gaps. So understanding who is, what children and families are we serving across our programs that are perhaps the same folks, and where are there folks who we are not serving that we could be, to help us do a better job with policy planning and investment decisions and promote positive outcomes for kids and their families. So importantly, that last bullet on the slide, it does not entail any new data collection. It's really just making better use of the data that we already have in hand across our agencies. But as we know, that data is siloed across our different agency systems. So if you want to go to the next slide, Kathy, for us in Texas in this project, a sub work group of the Texas Early Learning Council, it's been a couple years ago now, came together and created a roadmap, which we'll link out to. But y'all came up with these 5 questions of if we were able to put our integrated data, if we were able to better integrate data across these 3 agencies in the context of early childhood services and programs, what would we want to be able to answer? So the feedback we've gotten from other states who are farther along in this work is don't just throw all the data together and then think you'll magically, have insights from that. Go into it knowing what are the insights and what are the questions that you want to be able to answer. So that is what is on the left side here, that list of 5. The first 4 you see are what we think of as the foundational questions. So just understanding better what the landscape is around that total population of kids in our state who are birth to 5. And then who is eligible for our different early childhood services and programs, who has access to those programs, and who is and is not being served by our early childhood services and programs. That 5th question, are the state's children starting at birth healthy and on track to succeed, is really getting more at the question of outcomes. So what is happening in that birth to 5 age range that then impacts how a child does in the longer span of their career and life, thinking particularly of school outcomes. And then in this list of questions, on the right side, every time that we're talking about early childhood services and programs, that can mean a lot of different things. There's a lot of different programs and services that touch kids and their families in that age range. For the purposes of our starting point with an early childhood integrated data system, we are thinking of the programs and services listed there on the right. So within TEA, we're really thinking about public school, pre-K, also probably kindergarten, touching up to that age 5, as well as special education. So the early childhood special education that serves kids ages 3 to 5. From a workforce commission perspective, we're thinking about CCS, Child Care Services, also known as subsidies. And then for Health and Human Services Commission, there's a lot of different programs that agency runs. We are looking just at ECI, Early Childhood Intervention, and Family Support Services, formerly known as Prevention and Early Intervention, when it was at DFPS. We're looking at those 2 programs to start. So for those of you who have been tuned into this conversation over the years, none of that is new. That's all the same kind of foundational groundwork that we laid during the roadmap. The new update and the work that we've been able to do over the course of the last couple of years, thanks to funding through the Preschool Development Grant, is to actually hire up and start to build up a team of folks at TEA who can really tackle building out the first starting point of this early childhood integrated data system, which we're calling an MVP, so a minimum viable product in that technology lingo. And tuned into the call, we have the first 2 hires who are tuned in as panelists here, which is Adnan Chowdhury, who is our product manager at TEA for the early childhood integrated data system work, as well as Sudhir Kapara, who's our business analyst. So a small team of 2, and we have a developer who we've hired recently. So this small but mighty team is really using those preschool development grant funds to pick up the roadmap and all of the work that's been done to date and work with a cross-agency group of folks from these 3 agencies to put bones and kind of dig more into these 5 use cases and turn them into actionable dashboards and content that we can use to inform our programs and services and to better understand who we are serving and where that overlap might be across our programs. So that is my general update about goal 4, actions 4.1 and 4.2 that were on a couple slides ago. And then just know that there is a goal for us to have a public facing aspect of this ESIDS in the minimum viable product. So we will be coming back to this group and to folks who were part of the roadmap work group to just help make sure that that starting point makes sense. And again, this will all be version 1.0 with the hopes that it builds a strong foundation for us to then build on going forward. So I am happy to answer any questions that folks might have. And I would also say folks from these agencies are on both a cross-agency work group that's kind of rolling up their sleeves and looking, in design sessions with us, and then also steering committee members who are helping to steer the overall view. So Reagan, Megan, Tori, anyone else who's deeply involved in this work, feel free to jump in and share anything I might have missed. I'm then happy to answer any questions.
Megan, this is Stephanie. So the preschool development grant funds have run out or are going to run out. What's
In December, at the end of December.
And there was not funding in the new budget to supplement or sustain. So is this going to be TEA funding or kind of combined agency contribution to continue it, or what are you thinking?
It's a great question, Stephanie, and it reminds me I completely neglected to mention one giant part of an update about this, which is that a bill passed in the House this last session, HB 3963, which really picked up a lot of that language from the roadmap and codified it into statute. It was not, as you mentioned, funded directly by the legislature. So that is something that we are figuring out now. Stephanie, I think it's the right question. And we're hoping that we'll be able to continue the work on past December.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
But feel free to get out the Texas Care for Children checkbook and, yeah.
Right. Yes.
Just
and
kidding.
I think David has joined some meetings, but he's a new dad, so he may not be at your next one. So that's very exciting news, team news anyway.
Congrats to David.
All right, any other questions or comments for Megan? All right. So then our next update on the strategic plan, also in goal 4 on data and systems, is alignment and coordination across agencies to improve family access. And Kathy Arwood is going to give us an update on the eligibility screener that we have under development.
Yes, I am requesting to share my screen, Megan, so that I can show, or Kathy Davis.
Megan, you may need to do that. I'm not quite sure how to do that.
I think you just need to promote her to a host.
I think you just need to stop sharing, maybe, Kathy?
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, you should be able to see my browser. Great. So I wanted to share information about our updated Early Childhood Texas website. So some of you will probably remember that we developed this site, I want to say 2021, Megan, when it was first launched. And the team worked with families to talk about what they wanted to see on the site and worked through this with families. So this is the original site, still up right now. We talk about health and development, parenting, childcare and education, eligibility programs, so state programs that families may qualify for, some are income-based and such. And so we shared a lot of this information. This is a interagency project, which is very exciting. So when this was first launched, it was TEA, TWC, HHSC. So we've talked about all of these agencies, and then when the Family Support Services was part of Department of Family Protective Services, then it was DFPS as well. So this is the original site, and then I want to share, this is a preview of the updated site. Will be launched, it's planned to be launched in late August, and very similar with our lovely kite logo. And we worked with actually 4 different focus groups as we were developing the site, talking to parents, child care providers, other professionals in the early childhood workforce that determine eligibility for programs. And we talked to one group that was Spanish. It was kind of a mixture. So all of the others were in English, and then one that was in Spanish that was with parents and child care providers. And got some really great information from them. But overall, they talked about how they access information and what they want to get out of information. And so the big topics were, having something that's mobile friendly. And we actually went into this with a mobile first approach, understanding that a lot of the parents will be accessing this information because this is intended to support parents. That's our primary audience. And we want to make sure that they're accessing it, knowing that they are often using some type of mobile device, either a cell phone or a tablet, typically. And that's what we heard from parents as well. And then they're really looking for a hub where they can get a lot of information in one place and trusted information. So those are some of the things that we were thinking about as we developed this. Also a clean and streamlined look. So so we gave the site a bit of a facelift, but you can see that we still have the same information here. Childcare and education, health and development. I'm just going to click where you can see what's beneath there. Where we're talking about different programs, parenting, so that they can access some great parenting resources. And we changed the name of the eligibility program, so it's Find a Program. Again, just kind of helps them understand where things might be. Income eligible programs marked here with the little kite logo, and a variety of programs that they can explore. And then what we're really excited about is the addition of the eligibility screener. So this screener is designed to help parents identify if they are eligible for child care services, Head Start or Early Head Start, or public pre-K. So we're really focused on helping them understand those programs, look at the similarities and differences, and understand which one is going to be best for their family and that they are eligible for. So while I don't really have time to demo the screener itself, I did want to share a couple of the other features around here. So we've got a Programs at a Glance that helps parents look and see, okay, if I'm considering all of these options, because they may get results that show that their child is eligible for child care services, Head Start, and pre-K. So how do I know which one is best for my child? And so we share a lot of information where they can find out what those programs offer, what the eligibility is. We also have some FAQs, just frequently asked questions about the programs and the screener. And then a little, another little shot where they can see information about how the screener works, and then eligibility for those programs. So they know going into it what's required, and then it's a relatively easy screener to walk through for a family and determine where they might be eligible. They get results that they can then take to one of those programs and say, okay, this is what I found out, and then walk through either the application process, or I think all of them would have an application process. So, but we link to those so that they can easily access it. And really exciting to be able to work very closely with, we work with Alferma, with the Head Start Collaboration Office, and with several folks from TEA, and you know, be able to just determine, and you know, as you guys know, our eligibility requirements are different across each program. So really figuring out where they align and where they differ, and make sure that we have some easy, streamlined questions that parents can walk through to find out what they're likely eligible for. So I think that's really everything that I want to share on this. I'll also share that as part of the process, you know, I mentioned that we worked with parents and other eligibility staff for focus groups. And then we also brought them back, actually twice. So we brought them back to talk about, okay, this is what we laid out for this new design. And they looked at it. They shared several great insights. We made some changes based on their input. One of those changes being this nice little back to the top button, so you can easily find your way back on a long page, rearranging some things. So it was really great getting that feedback. And then also we engaged them again with user acceptance testing. So once we said, okay, this is the final version, we asked some parents, providers, and eligibility staff to go in multiple languages, looking at different pages, providing their feedback, testing the eligibility screeners. So it was a great opportunity to get that family engagement and that cross-sector engagement as we went through this. So Megan, is there anything you want to add as you worked very closely with us on this?
No, it's a great overview. I think we're just really excited to get it out into the world and see how it's working.
Great. All right, so we're happy to take some questions. I see Kirsten.
Kathy, I'm just curious, is there an opportunity for partners to share, you know, connections to other content? So, you know, we have a number of great resources under PBS Kids Parents. Is it possible to connect to that or other station information?
There absolutely is, and we do, I believe, connect to some PBS parent resources already with that.
Yeah, so Kirsten, we have in the, I think we renamed At Home Learning and it has a different title now, but that same content is still there, like all the great links that we had worked with y'all to curate for PBS.
Yes, it's under learning resources now.
Thank you.
Kathy,
A
is
suggestion from our parent. Go ahead, sir.
my perennial question when we talk about the screener is there a timeline or hope to add in Medicaid and SNAP and other programs like that, since some of the eligibility is similar?
That is
I remember it was going to be like a little off into the future. You were going to try this first, so I just wanted to mention.
Yeah, that's a much bigger lift. I think what we kind of think about as next steps and designed it with next steps in mind was to be able to streamline the connections to apply for these services. When we're combining programs across different agencies, it does make it a little bit more difficult. And then with SNAP and Medicaid, yeah, much larger lift. So there is, a similar program. What is that called? My Benefits or My
Texas Benefits.
That already is offering that for that program, and we do, I think, link to that on the site. But at this time, I don't think we have plans to put that into this eligibility screener. But yeah, I mean, obviously the hope would be to get as integrated as we can and it still be useful for parents.
Kathy, sorry if I missed this. Did you say when this was going to launch?
So our goal is late August.
Late August, okay.
Yeah, we'll let you know when it does launch.
And I know this is a tricky question for TWC. What's the outreach plan to let parents know it's available?
We do have an outreach plan. I think we're going to start with the soft launch and just kind of check it again once it's actually in that final production stage. Make sure that everything is still running smoothly. But we'll be sharing it out with our networks for sure. Reagan, I saw you come off mute. Did you want to add something there?
Nope. That's all good. Any other questions or comments for Kathy? All right. Thank you, Kathy. All right. And then we don't have a slide on this, but we do have an update from Kirsten, who is chairing the Early Learning Council. Or do we have slides? Did we add a couple of slides?
Let me see.
I can't remember. But Kirsten, you're going to give us an update on the TELC strategic plan work group.
Yes, I can go ahead and do that. Kathy, I don't know if you have a slide. I think you don't. But just wanted to remind everyone that our group has been meeting. It's been a fantastic group, very productive. We've had a lot of good input and ideas. And so just want to publicly thank the group that's been meeting. We feel like we have done a lot towards helping to connect what some resources are out there with the work that's going on. We would love to have the opportunity to continue meeting if that's the pleasure of this group. Because I think there's still some work and refinement that we can do as a group. So just to give you some updates from the previous, I did give you an update, I think at the last meeting, but some additional updates. In terms of the first goal, which is around family support, that we then that goal that we focused in on was sharing consumer insight and feedback collected across programs to inform family engagement and connection. So if you're following along at home, it would be action 1.4.2, as well as action 1.4.5. And the work group has some really good ideas about how to distribute the upcoming early learning needs assessment survey that will be going out to families. And we had some good suggestions for Dr. Mandel, who's leading that work, and has done a terrific job on that. And we look forward to the updated needs assessment later this year, which will help in both of these action items. So then in the category of goal 2, which is we were focused on the workforce supports, and one of those is action 2.3.5, which is to make a starting point for trying to expand the number of higher ed programs for physical, occupation, and speech therapists that educate or train on early childhood service provision. And we have to give an incredible shout out to Becky Fuss Miller. Am I saying her name right? Huss-Miller, sorry. And she went around and studied what each program throughout the state was doing and compiled a spreadsheet to help us better navigate what programs are out there offered by universities, colleges, and community colleges. And it's it was an incredible gift that she spent time doing this, because both as she's an expert, as she's a professor at in Houston, but she also really learned a lot about what programs are out there, how they're provided on people's websites. The language they use is obviously can be very different across all of these different institutions, and so helped us kind of navigate that. And so I want to give a shout out to Becky. I know she's not here today, but for that great work. And so I think that's a great addition to this work that we are doing. For the action item that was 2.3.6, which was to involve retired teachers back in the early childhood profession, I think it's fair to say our group thought that was such a fantastic idea. But we did struggle a little bit with how to do that, and how to help make progress on that goal. And so we want to continue to kind of looking at that one, but we feel like there are some opportunities. Several members pointed to some mentor programs run through colleges and universities and some other ideas. So I think we need to learn a little bit more, but we feel like that's such an excellent piece of all of this. In terms of action item 2.4.9, we think that the TechPeds would be able to handle publishing a list of events and conferences, which is what that goal was around. April is studying what that looks like, and they have a real interest in providing that as part of TechPeds. So I think that some movement is going on that, but still more to come about that. And then the work group has documented additional peer-to-peer mentoring programs, including one called CARES, which is Child Care Advancement Resources and Experience Sharing, TechPeds Connect, and First 3 Years. So the next step there is to share the list for further input from a broader audience and determine where it can be posted. So that's kind of, and that was a little in the weeds, but that was the great work of this group and shows you the kind of dedication and attention to how we can kind of move many of these ideas forward.
All
Any
right.
questions?
Questions or comments? Kirsten, it may be in the weeds, but I think that's a great update. I love seeing those very specific kinds of action recommendations that the work group is coming up with to further the work within the strategic plan. That's really great. Any other questions or comments? All right, let's go to our next agenda item. This is legislative updates. So we don't have anyone specifically who requested to provide legislative updates. Let me ask if any of the members would like to share any updates on this agenda item.
I'm going to nominate Kim. And
I was
then
going to nominate you.
And then we can supplement. Well, we can supplement too because we have a legislative recap, which I'll put in the chat, and an
Okay.
update on pre-K funding, which I'll put in the chat, and so I won't have to mention as much. But Reagan, it would be great if you. I don't know who wants to give the update about the governor's task force on early childhood and what role maybe there will be for TELC members. I don't have great detail on that, but I'd love to hear what you've learned, I guess.
Well,
About
let me provide an update just from TWC's perspective on some of the key bills that we have the lead on.
Perfect.
So there was a bill that passed, Senate Bill 462, that created a new waiting list priority for child care workers' children. They have to be eligible for CCDF, but they basically become, a priority population. And so they skip the very long waiting list that's currently in place. We are proposing rules. The commission will approve proposed rules at the August 12th commission meeting. So we've got a pretty quick rule package coming forward so we can get the rules in place that are needed to implement this legislation. So these won't be all the rule changes that we need to make to the child care rules, but we're moving this one forward quickly so we can go ahead and take the steps needed to implement that legislation. So proposed rules, August 12th. They'll be published for 30-day public comment, and then they'll come back to the full commission for approval in late October for effect in early November. There is another piece of legislation, the Quad Agency Initiative. TWC has the lead on that Quad Agency Initiative, where we're tasked with pulling together TEA, HHSC, DFPS, along with us, in an effort to review existing or proposed policies, rules, regulations related to the childcare industry. The legislation notes that the first Quad Agency meeting has to be held before the end of the calendar year. I will be hiring a project manager for the work that we will need to do coordinating on behalf of the Quad Agency Initiative. So we expect that position to be on board this month. And then we'll start putting together more of the operational details and getting that Quad Agency established and getting a meeting on the books. So those are kind of two of the big bills that we're working on now. Stephanie, on your question on the other bill, House Bill 117, the governor's task force on the governance of early childhood education and care, TWC is a member, but we are not the lead agency implementing this. So I don't have any updates on that bill. The Texas Education Agency has the lead on overseeing that particular piece of legislation. So they may be able to speak to that, but I don't have any updates on that bill specifically. All right. So I see you dropped some resources in the chat, both Kim and Stephanie. So are there things that you guys want to provide an update on?
Well, I think we would be remiss if we didn't take a little moment to celebrate the $100 million of unused TANF dollars that will now be in your budget, Reagan. I know we have increased costs and all things that are factoring into that piece of things, but it is still a first time the ledge has recognized that our funding just from the federal government is not enough. It's obviously not still not enough, but we are thrilled and thankful to our partners, Texans Care, and all of the partners and all of you across the state that lend your voice and signed on letters or testified or were interviewed for an interview in the media. So thank you. We obviously the fight continues, but we are also going to take a moment and celebrate the win. It's historic in Texas. So thank you for all your. This is not a this wasn't the first time we've asked for money. This is not as many of you know, anything with the legislature is not a one and done, and it's not a you propose something 1 year and it gets through. So this has been a long effort for many of us across decades. So thank you.
Yeah, and I will say, I know a lot of people have said, well, how many more kids are you going to serve? The unfortunate reality is that the cost of care went up even more than the amount of money that the legislature appropriated. We increased our allocation this year. It went up about, we went from like 1.3 billion to 1.4 billion. So, a pretty good increase, like a 9% increase in the amount of funding that's out there. But our cost of care increased. We base our base rates on the 75th percentile of the market rate survey, and statewide the base rate went up 9%. It differs, area by area, but overall a 9% increase is the biggest I can remember seeing in a 1-year period. I think we usually see 5 or 6%, so 9% was very, very significant. That's not the only increase. That's the base rate increase. When you actually look at the average cost of care, which also include factors like Texas Rising Star status, if you compare last year when we set performance targets to this year when we set performance targets, it was like a almost 13% increase in the cost of care from the beginning of last year to what we're estimating the beginning of fiscal year 26. Because we benchmark our base rates annually to the market rate survey, we generally raise rates every year. So that 50 million in the first year of the biennium certainly was very, very helpful, because we wouldn't be able to serve as many kids as we are serving now if we had not received those additional state funds.
So that's interesting because, and I know David's on my team has tried to be very judicious about trying to say how many more kids would be served because the numbers were hard in the first place. I mean, we know it was to address the 95,000 family wait list, but like how low it would get to or how many, families would get a scholarship was always a little bit unclear. So I guess what you're saying is that money is basically helping to just maintain the current situation, which just gives us a lot of thought about how to talk about more money next time, because we were trying to be careful to not have them say, okay, well, did you serve 10,000 kids, like 10,000 additional families? And so we didn't want to set that up for failure if in fact, the reimbursement and cost of care and all that stuff went up. But it was compelling to the legislators. The wait list was a simple, big number that helped galvanize people, and I think that number is obviously going to remain really high. So that should be helpful next time. But that's interesting to know. Thanks for sharing that, Reagan.
Yeah,
well, I think adding, the we always never know what the federal government is going to do. We don't anticipate a cut with CCBG, but that extra money is just, that's one thing I always talk like, we don't know what the feds are going to do. So, but hopefully we'll fill that gap in. So,
Yeah.
and so,
Well, and we have said an additional 50 million supports about 5,000 kids.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's, 5,000 kids that that are supported with those additional
if they were
funds.
currently in care and they just get to keep their care, or if they are coming off the wait list, they're still serving 5,000 kids.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. All right. Any other updates from council members on legislation?
I'll share one. This is Megan from TEA on Tori's behalf. She has to run soon. But in answer to your question, Stephanie, about HB 117, which is the governor's task force, like Reagan mentioned, TEA is the lead of that bill. So more info to come. As you might have noticed, there's a lot of different education bills coming our way out of session. But more info to come, and you are correct that there is a role for the Texas Early Learning Council in that bill because it's named as a member. So it will be up to the governor's office is our understanding of how which members are named, but it does designate that there will be 2 members of the Texas Early Learning Council who are part of that task force or group. So I'm happy to answer any other questions folks might have about 117. Just don't have a ton of information right now.
The only,
truth.
yeah.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I put in the chat Lauren McKinsey did a summary of like what happened around pre-K funding, because there was lots of discussion differences between House and Senate bills, budget bills, school finance bills, and so hopefully that's helpful. It's a kind of a confusing, like there is money dedicated to full day pre-K, but it doesn't end up really addressing the lack of half day funding for that other half a day. So anyway, hope that's helpful. If you have any questions, let us know about that. I mentioned the HB6, the suspension. HB6 was a big discipline bill kind of across kids of students of all ages, but there was a push to allow districts to do out of school suspension for young students pre-K through second for, I can't remember the exact language, but it's basically like disruptive behavior. It's a very general category that is at that developmental stage, like can happen to anyone. That could apply to any child, and so there is some concern about whether districts will use that immediately, that option, or try to get supports for teachers or kids before using that option. And one of the things we had pushed for was to try to make sure that districts, if they did suspend based on that reason, to be able to explain that it was for that reason, and so that TEA and district leadership would have a good sense about maybe what kind of supports those teachers and districts needed to help those families. So we'll just have to monitor that one a little bit, but that it did come off in the arguments for it by teachers, was that they really have a lot of children with challenging behaviors and really are struggling with that in terms of classroom management. So and then the last thing I was going to mention is there was a provision in the school finance bill that was added basically at the last couple weeks, that is going to make it very difficult for districts to continue or start offering spots for tuition paying families for pre-K. And the bill says that there will now be at least 4 quote intermediaries who will basically analyze and let districts know if they can add new pre-K classrooms or support tuition-based pre-K based on the availability of childcare slots for families, and sort of how that availability, like how that's going to get defined, how that's going to be researched, is still needs to be worked out, but the tuition-based pre-K piece doesn't go into effect until 2027. We have heard some districts who learned about this bill and provision and just decided to cancel their tuition-based pre-K programs, which is distressing. So anyway, that's kind of coming down the pike, and lots of people talked about, we really need more options for families, not fewer. And even in this case where maybe there is availability of childcare, that's probably full cost, and tuition-based pre-K at the district level is usually more affordable than that. The other change on the pre-K piece, of course, is that teachers in school districts are now an eligibility category for public pre-K, which is great.
Yeah, I know that we've been working with TEA, to understand how they are going to be implementing all of the pre-K legislation as it relates to partnerships.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to seeing, their detailed implementation plans coming out. I believe they said winter of this year. So
Okay.
we'll get more details on how all of those new provisions will impact pre-K. Shruti?
Yeah, I just want to provide quick updates on the DSHS side and the bills that we were following on maternal and child health side. Beyond the two bills that we've already talked about, the task force as well as the integrated data system. There were 4 other bills that we followed for this group. There is a bill that got passed, House Bill 3940. It's going to require us to make updates to our information for parents of newborns publication, as well as the parents' guide to raising happy, healthy children pamphlets. Is going to include more information about Medicaid numbers and the coverage for those newborn children. So that would be specific for this group. We did receive lots of monies on the maternal side. I won't go into too much detail for that. If you guys have any questions or want information on the maternal side, I can provide those updates at a later time.
All right, thank you. All right, any other updates? Okay, so our next agenda item are updates from Texas Early Learning Council members, and Megan Young with ECI is going to provide us with an update.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I do have just a quick update, and we wanted to put a slide because it's a lot of words and I'm going to be reading out to y'all. But in collaboration with some local ECI programs, as well as faculty at some of the universities that have letters of collaboration with ECI, we've identified some additional degrees that meet the minimum requirements for the early intervention specialist credential. So we have a set of degrees that have been added as qualifying, which means someone with this degree meets the minimum standards to be an early intervention specialist. And so we've added child life, infant and toddler studies, and infant and toddler development as qualifying degrees. Then we've also added a set of degrees as related, which means that someone with this degree whose transcript also shows that they have 3 course credit hours specific to early childhood development or early childhood special education, as well as 9 semester course credit hours relevant to early intervention. And those degrees are child development, early childhood education, looking at early childhood through grade 6 or pre-K through grade 3, family sciences or family studies, nursing, and rehabilitation therapy. So we've updated this information on our early intervention specialist credentialing webpage, which is linked on the slide. And local ECI programs are now today using this expanded list of qualifying and related degrees when hiring early intervention specialists. Our hope is that this change will streamline the hiring and credentialing process for these professionals and expand the pool of individuals who are qualified to provide early intervention services. Any questions? Thanks. You're still on mute, Reagan.
Thank you. Allison has an update for us.
Hey,
Well, good afternoon. I don't have a slide for this. This is late breaking, but we wanted to let you know, excuse me, that we did release a request for application yesterday afternoon. It was published. I did drop some information in the chat along with a link. This is for a new statewide initiative we're funding. It's called ELITE, which is an acronym for Early Learning Intervention Training and Education. So there will be 3 main focus areas for this grantee. The first will be providing training and support to local workforce solutions staff who are determining when it's appropriate and how to assess the inclusion rate for children with disabilities who are receiving subsidies. So we hear a lot about the need for help with that. This entity will also be providing support and technical assistance to boards and staff to, just support implementing those inclusive practices for children with disabilities. And then lastly, they will also be delivering training to Texas Rising Star providers around inclusive practices and developmentally appropriate strategies and supports. And this will cover not only diagnosed disabilities, but also undiagnosed disabilities and, behavioral challenges, which we hear so much about, continue to hear a lot about. So that will also be part of what their training addresses. So we're excited that that's out there. So share it with your networks if you know of a potentially qualified applicant. And that's it.
All right. Thank you, Allison. Any other updates from council members? All right. Okay. So our last agenda item, we have upcoming early childhood events. All right. And so, Megan, who's going to provide an overview of this?
This is a standing item. Shruti, I don't know if you want to maybe re-highlight the ECHO series for us.
Sure. So we work closely with UT in doing the ECHO series. So they provide webinars every single month. It's the second Friday of each month from 1 to 2. And each webinar is a different topic. I can put in the chat the next date and time if you guys want to register for that webinar, but it is something that's done every month. It's part of the Texas Developmental Screening and Surveillance.
Great. Thank you.
I think the next one is
much.
today, like immediately after this meeting. So.
Oh, all right. Kim.
We are hosting an early childhood summit next Thursday. I'm dropping the link in the chat. Have a legislative overview. Will be part of it. We also have Elliot Haspel, who has a new book out next week on making the case for childcare across Raising a Nation is what it's called, as well as some some early childhood leaders from other states, Georgia, Arkansas, and Louisiana, on their structure of childcare. So as we are living into sunset season for many of our agencies and our quad agency and our governor's task force, so getting us some outside information to see how we can continue to improve childcare in our early childhood systems for children and families. So join us next week. It's from 10 to noon webinar. Should be lots of good information and good conversation.
Great. Megan.
I also just wanted to flag that the ECI Advisory Committee will meet on August 20th, and I put a link in the chat to the meeting agenda, and that's also available for folks to join anywhere in the state on Teams.
All right. Okay. Any other events from council members? Okay. Then that takes us to an announcement of our next meeting date, October the 24th. Mark your calendars, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And with that, it is 12:39, and we will adjourn the Texas Early Learning Council thank you members very much for joining and for all of the members of the public who are here with us today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Reagan.